Today's actually a very special day. You might not realise this, but today is the 6th of April. Am I right? Correct? Well, actually, that's the birthday of this church, 39 years ago. It's actually today. Yeah. So, 39 years ago, my wife and I and our 4 children got a hall like this. It was called the Chermside Senior Citizens Hall. Some of you might know it. And I had long hair. I was really groovy. Now I've got no hair, but that's okay. And we just set out about 12 chairs and a bit of communion. And we had one other guy, an Aussie. So all of us were Kiwis, but we did have a bona fide Aussie, and his name is John Kerry, and he played the piano, and we opened our service, and in that service a girl turned up, and her name was Maria Minarchik, and her granny used to come and hear me preach when I used to itinerate through Australia, and she heard through somebody that we were actually starting a church. So she grabbed Maria and brought along to our church and said, "This is the church you're going to." Don't you love grandmums? When they say you're doing it, right? And she stayed with us, and it's been wonderful. But today is actually the 39th birthday of our church on a Sunday. You know, it doesn't happen every year. It's not a Sunday, but it's actually today. And thanks for those kind words. Don't you have good pastors? Eh? You got a good church. You love your church. You got to love your church. Amen. Because when we love our church, we're aligned with Jesus. Because Jesus did all of this, not just for me. See, you know, we become very self-centered as modern people. You know, we have iPhone and iTunes and it's all I. But actually, church, when you start coming to church, you realize it's not about me. It's actually about the Lord first, and it's about everyone else. And we lay our lives down for that cause. That's what it means, actually, to be a true Christian, to serve the Lord. We step out of ourselves, and we step into all that God has and all that God is. So it's actually good to be here. Isn't it awesome for our birthday? And it's just a great privilege to be involved. And we're starting a new series today, right across our 5 locations, and it's actually the core purpose and vision of the church. And that is actually to be lights that shine. Have you noticed funny things about light? If we turn all the lights out here, say it was dark, and we turn all the lights out, this becomes dark. So darkness is actually not a thing. Darkness is actually the absence of a thing, right? And here's the thing. When you turn the lights on, a ray of darkness doesn't come into the room. Have you noticed that? A ray of light in the room goes out. And it's very vivid imagery that Jesus chose. He said, "You're the light of the world." So that means you now have the substance of what everyone else hasn't got. And when you step into a room, darkness doesn't get you. The light in you gets other people. And it's just such an incredible thing to understand that you and I are called to be light. We're to shine. We're to be examples. So people can look at us and go, when I grow up, I want to be like him. I want to be like her. See, what that person's got, I want, because we're showing it. So the whole idea that we preach sort of needs a rejigging. So it's not just about what we say, it's actually how we live, right? So your life counts. Your marriage counts. How you treat your husband or your wife or your children It like really counts. And people notice it. And we've had unchurched people, friends of ours, come into our home for a meal. And we've had people say to them, I've had people say to me, I love being in your home. And they can't explain it because it's a vibe. It's not just, you know, you've got a sticker on the wall, Jesus is the head of this house. That's great. But if he isn't the Lord of my life, that plaque means nothing. Right? So if I preach, but I treat my wife wrong, then my message, people won't listen because they're deafened by my example. So, you see, Jesus is the light of the world, right? Now he says, you are, because I'm in you and I'm shining. It's incredible, isn't it? And so the struggle goes. So this month we're talking about being a light with the idea of shining and sharing the gospel with people. And it's one of our core values. It's actually our center thing. And we have three things basically that everything hangs on in Lighthouse, and it has for 39 years. As a matter of fact, existed before that in our home church in Palmerston. You know, I go back to New Zealand. I go to a town called Palmerston North, and I preach in my home church. And the core value there is win the lost. So we have this three thing. We say win lost people, make disciples, grow leaders who win lost people, make disciples, grow leaders who. So we're all of us, we are involved in that mission. But what we find is we're talking here about a big word. It's called evangelism, and I call it the E word because most Christians don't want to talk about it because it's quite embarrassing. You know, it's sort of like talking about your underwear, but it's kind of like, because we know we want to do it, and we know we're called to be witnesses, but we're kind of like undercover agents. We're kind of private. We don't seem to get opportunities to share the gospel. I want to share a few ideas with us this morning, and then at the end we'll pray for a few people, okay? But just a few ideas to take the E out of it and it become more natural, more of a flow in your life. All right? So that can help. The title of my message is The Big Ask. Turn to the person next to you and say, The Big Ask. Make sure you say that correctly. The Big Ask. As our kids, you know, we've got 4 children. They've all grown up now, and we've got 14 grandchildren, and we've got 2 great-grandchildren, one on the way, and it's like, oh, man, it's just a big family. But one of the things I love doing with my kids was 2 things, actually. I read to them, right? And we watch movies together. Great movies. And as they grew older, the movie content changed, obviously. But there are still movies now when I go to visit, say, our son in New Zealand who's pastoring. He goes, Dad, tonight it's taco and movie night. And they do it like once a month, you know, and the kids choose the movie. But it's really interesting. My grandchildren are choosing movies that we watch with our kids. Isn't that interesting? And we've watched a lot of movies, you know, like Princess Bride. Have you ever watched that? Inconceivable. It's all a movie about logic and that. And another one we used to watch, was one called The Labyrinth. And there's a scene in there that's absolutely brilliant. Actually, there's a lot of scenes. It's sort of like a takeoff of Alice in Wonderland. And it's all about logic and all that. So in one scene, they're going somewhere, and I think it's just a takeoff of Alice in Wonderland. And they say, which way should I go? And this guy says, well, it all depends where you want to go. And she says, well, I'm not sure. And he says, well, then it doesn't really matter which way you go. Just all like this. Well, there's another scene. They're fighting their way through to get to the labyrinth, and they come across this bridge. And standing on the bridge is a fox. And he's dressed up like a musketeer. Got a sword and a hat with a plume and everything. And they come to the bridge, and they're getting ready to cross the bridge, and he draws his sword. And he says, no one crosses here without my permission. And of course, the men with this girl, they draw their swords and get out of our way, you scoundrel. And they start sword fighting, and feathers are going everywhere. And they're fighting, and in the middle of the fight, the girl, she says, stop, stop. And they look at her, and she goes, Mr. Fox, is it true that no one passes here without your permission? And he goes, yes, on my life I've taken a vow that no one will pass by here without my permission. So the girl says, well, Mr. Fox, may I have your permission? And he goes, yes. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about great movies. But here's an unchurched survey. Have you heard of NCLS? It's been around for years. About every 8 years in Australia, they survey Christians all over the country and unchurched people. And here is one of the questions in the unchurched survey. And it's been repeated every time. It comes up every time there's a high number. Listen to this. Number one question to unchurched Aussies. Have you ever been invited to church? It's a pretty simple question, isn't it? Have you ever been invited to church? 90% say no. So 90% of Aussies actually have never been invited to church. Why? Because Christians haven't asked them. But here's another interesting thing. Second question, would you go to church if you were invited? Look at the number. 75% said yes, just like Didymus in the movie. Isn't that amazing? 90% have never been asked, but 75% said, yeah, I'd probably go if I was invited. Isn't that amazing? The big ask. And you see, here's the thing. We don't ask. So if 75% of people would come to maybe a picnic or a Christmas thing, or something, so you've got to choose you've got to be smart. So what would my friend or this person I know, what would they tend to say yes to? Right? So you wouldn't say to your unchurched neighbour, we're doing a 40-day prayer and fast at the church. You want to come along? Well, number one, they're going to go, what's that? And number two, you're weird. But maybe to a picnic in the park above. Yeah. Maybe a guest speaker or a women's event or a men's event. So it's the big ask. But let's talk about the big ask, shall we? I'm going to give you about 4 things. You ready for number one? This is deep and profound this morning. I'm bringing you pearlers, deep stuff. Here's number one. Tell your story. Tell your story. You go, no, what do you mean? Well, yes. Tell your story. See, every story in this room is a miracle. And every miracle is a new life. And every new life is a story, so tell your story. Oh, you might ask the question then, okay then, Gordon, what is my story? Good question. I find most Christians actually have never thought about that question. We did a survey in our church probably about 20 years ago. You were there. And we did this whole survey and we asked a whole lot of questions. One of the questions was, have you ever invited someone to church? And I thought, wow, the answer's pretty good. About 75, 80% of our church in the last year or so had invited someone to church. In other words, to an event or something. Right? I thought, wow, that's awesome. The next question went a bit deeper and it said, have you ever shared your testimony or your story with a close friend? The numbers reversed. Over 70, like around 70, 80% of our church had never actually told their story. So what we found in our church, we had an inviting culture, but not a tell your story culture. And the two have to go together. It's more than just asking someone to come to something. We need to be ready to tell our story. So how do you tell your story? Well, one of my favorite business writers is a guy called Gitmer. And I got all his books. And he's an unusual writer. His name is Gitomer. Jeffrey Gitt Omer, or Emer. He says this particular book is about selling. But the truth of it is applicable everywhere. He says this: a prepared demonstration means personalized. A prepared demonstration means personalized. In other words, if you prepare it and think about it, you're going to personalize it, right? And he says that's simple in selling. Have you ever spoken to a salesman and they're like, modern day virtue signalers? Have you ever listened to modern day virtue signalers? After a while, you hear them all, and you said the same as that person. You're all the same. They all use the same words, and they talk soft, and all they're doing is virtue signaling. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever heard a salesperson and they regurgitate the sales message? It's like, oh man, I'm out of here. Because it just comes across so phony, right? So what Gitomer is saying, to be an effective salesperson, if I'm going to sell something to Joe, instead of just regurgitating my company's policy or the product, what I need to do is sit down and write out how I'm going to demonstrate or put to him how good this product is. Now, the moment I think like that, I'm going to personalize it. It's the same with the gospel. Don't just regurgitate scriptures. See, many Christians think, well, if you just regurgitate a scripture, about 10 scriptures, people will get saved. But that's not necessarily going to happen. But I'll tell you what, when you tell your story and it's personalized, boom, it gives you power. Tell your story. Now, I'm not going to go into this a lot because I want to say some other things as well, but let me give you a few ideas about telling your story. Number 1, BC. Number 2, RC. Number 3, LC. What does that mean? BC means before Christ. Tell them, present a short synopsis or explanation about what you were like before you received Christ. That doesn't mean you go into all the gory details, right? So if you said to an unchurched person, well, I used to go out every night and get drunk, and man, I just partied out. I was so partied out, I was just, and then I became a Christian. Well, to the average person, that is, well, why did you stop having all that fun? So it's not about glorifying what you did, but it's explaining what you were like. Right? So say I'm sharing to Yasmin, Yazzie. Okay. And she's from a completely unchurched background. The way I would introduce before Christ, I say, Yazzie, before you might think I'm a pastor, I've always been a Christian, but actually, I was a pagan just like you. We never went to church. The only time I remember going to a church once was a funeral in the little Presbyterian church on the hill, and it was a local business guy died, And we all went along. He had to get dressed up in ties and everything. That was the only time I want to go to church. So you see, I'm letting her know. See how you're personalising the story? Whereas if I'm talking to Joe and he was brought up in the church and he knows me, I'm in the church, and I'm now going to share my story with him, I wouldn't necessarily take that line. I'd personalise and say, you know, Joe, I've been in the church now for over 50 years, sort of like you, a real church background. But you know what, Joe, just because you're born in a garage doesn't make you a motor car, right? Right? So just because you're born in the church doesn't make you a Christian. This is what I've found. I had to personally receive Christ. So you see, I'm telling my story, but I'm personalising it, and I'm letting them know what I was like before Christ. Well, what's RC? No, it's not Roman Catholic. It means receiving Christ. Now tell people, when you do your presentation, tell people how you received Christ. When did you receive Christ? What happened? What did you feel? What did you do? What happened to you? Right? And then Elsie spend most of the time talking to them about living Christ. Right? In other words, what has the difference been in your life since you met Jesus? What is it like being a Christian? Because most people think being a Christian's weird. You hear even commentators on TV, when they talk about Christians and Pentecostals, they call us happy clappies. Well, yeah, we are happy and we clap, but we're not weird. So you see, living Christ is really important. What difference has Christ made in your life? What is it like to actually live for Christ? And tell them what you do and what fun you have and the change that's happened and helping other people and whatever. Right? We could say a lot more about that. Here's what I believe you need. You need an abbreviated version and you need an elongated version. So in other words, if I'm sitting at a cafe one day with my business associate and Joe leans over and says, Gordon, I heard you go to church. Is that true? That's not Genesis to Revelation moment. It's in a cafe. It needs an abbreviated. And so you only take maybe a minute, 3 minutes, just do BCLCRC and have it tailor-made and share, and you finish with this. Hey, look, Joe, I know it's business and we're here, we're busy, but look, sometime, why don't we sit down and let me share more fuller with you what it's like. And yes, we've got to get that, right? But I find what happens in the church world is we get so keen to share that when a door opens, we bring in the whole thing, right? And we've got to learn that. Okay, here's my favourite verse about evangelism or witnessing. 1 Peter 3:15. Be ready always to give an answer for the hope that is within you or that lies within you. So be ready. So if I'm working with Joe and I'm getting to know him, I need to start getting ready when he asks the question. So because you see, let me help you. Don't, on the first day at work, start preaching to Joe. Bad idea. Be a light. Be generous. Be a real person. And be ready for his question. Because I'm telling you, the question's going to come. The question's going to come, right? Be ready always with an answer. Do you know that word answer is the Greek word that means defense, like in a law court. So you would present your defense, why you are a Christian. Have it ready. Memorize it. Personalize it. Have it ready to go. Number 2, you got number 2? These are deep pearlers here. This is just so deep and profound, brother. Your mind's boggling, right? Number 2, here it is. You ready? Ask questions. Do you notice in the Bible, it's all full of questions? Like Genesis. Where are you, Adam? God knew where Adam was not just that day, but he knew where he would be that before that. But he doesn't come, there you are, you spineless little jellyfish. You ate the apple, didn't you? God doesn't do that, does he? He goes, where are you? He says, well, God, you see, there's a bit of a problem. The woman that you gave me, she made me eat. So now he So then God doesn't say, I told you you're a spineless little jellyfish. No, what is that? He looks to the woman and this is what God says. What have you done? Well, God, you see, I haven't done anything actually, but what happened was the devil tempted me. And of course we know then the devil didn't have a leg to stand on. That's a joke. So ask the right question. Ask the right question. See, the right question will lead you to information and agreement. But if we preach at people, we'll just get people's backs up. That's why the Bible's full of questions. Where are you? Elijah, what are you doing here? What have you done? Cain, where's your brother? God knew where his brother was. He wanted him to fess up. He wanted him to, and all through the Bible, Peter, who do you say that I am? Jesus never said, I'm the Son of God. He did, but he did in that setting. He didn't proclaim. He asked questions. Who do you say that I am? Peter goes, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. Blessed are you. Right? Questions. So what kind of questions? You want to ask questions that get other people thinking. Ask the kind of questions that actually get people, they have to think. Have you ever been into a shop? It's my favourite. Hello, how are you? Can I help you? No. How many shop assistants ask you, can I help you? And what do you go? No. Why? Because you know that person can't help you. Because they're not prepared. They don't know. I was in Sydney a few years ago and I was going to speak. I wasn't actually speaking at this conference. And my wife and I were there. It was in Sydney. We went on to this conference. And the first afternoon, the guy said, Gordon, I'm so glad you're here at the conference. Could you do a session for us tomorrow? I've only got T-shirts and jeans, and they had not suit and tie, but it was a bit more dressed up. I thought, well, I'm going to have to get a shirt and I need some decent pants. I might just get a shirt and they'll probably be okay. So I go into this menswear shop and this woman comes up to me. Really, she was vivacious. She was smiling. She said, hi, my name's, can't even remember. What's your name? I go, Gordon. And I was looking at the rack of shirts. She said, Gordon, I notice you're looking at shirts. What kind of shirt are you looking for? Darn, she's got me. Because I wanted to say, can I help you? No. Instead, my name is, Gordon. I noticed you were looking at shirts. Gordon, what kind of shirt are you after? And before I can get the answer, she goes, is that for business or pleasure? Business. What line of work are you in? I said, well, I'm like a public speaker. I speak all around the world. So you travel, yes. Don't look at those shirts. They're made of cotton or something. She said, come up, poly, whatever. She said, come over here and look at these. Now looking at you, Gordon, I noticed you have a very orangey undertones. She said, so your favourite colours would be black, maroon, or navy blue. Which one? She got me again. She didn't say, which one do you like? Or she didn't say, she didn't ask a question. I go, no. Do you like red? No. She says, you obviously these would be your colours. Which one would you like? Navy blue. May I suggest you have these two? Why don't you go and try? I bought 2 pairs of shirts. I bought a pair of pants. I'm telling you, it's the truth. I came back, my wife said, you're spending our money again. I said, darling, it wasn't my fault. You should have seen the salesperson. I nearly bought a jacket. And I don't need a jacket. Ask the right questions. Ask questions that make people think. Would you like to come to church? No. Get out of my face. right? Hey, Joe, I've managed to secure these tickets for the next men's event in our church. And we've got the speaker coming. He's an ex-rugby league player. He's awesome. He's going to share his experiences in league and life. What time shall I pick you up? That's called an assumed close. And anyway, so what he does, he goes, 6 o'clock? And I give him the ticket. Would you like to come? No. I'm like it. If someone asks me, I just go, no, because I want to think about it. Ask questions that get people thinking. Oh, man, we've run right out of time here. Okay, let me finish with an example. Philip, the evangelist, is in the city of Samaria. He's winning the whole city to Jesus. People are getting baptized, healed, and everything. The Spirit says, go into the desert. Oh, so he goes in the desert. Next minute, a chariot comes along. As the chariot, he runs beside it. He notices the guy in there is reading a scroll. So he's an educated Ethiopian. So Ethiopia was the first country outside of Israel that received the gospel right here. He says, you read it, I ain't got time. What are you reading? So, he didn't say, can I come up into your chariot? No. He said, what are you reading? He says, I'm reading the book of Isaiah. And then he waits. You read it. And the guy goes, but I have no one to show me because I'm finding it difficult to understand. Funny you should say that. Paraphrased translation. Would you like me to help? I can come in and help you. And it says he began. Then he gets near the end. He goes, now what you need? You need to get baptized. No. He says, would you like to be baptized? Oh, yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. Well, here's water. Let's do it now. Okay. He goes back home to Ethiopia, born again, baptized in water, and understanding what he was reading. Why? Because Philip asked questions. Questions that got him thinking. What question could you ask a friend or an associate or a colleague that would open their life to the gospel? What question? Never say, would you come to church? They'll say, no, I'm telling you right now. But ask the kind of question that gets people thinking. And finally, when you prepare it, learn to present the gospel. Here it is. You can buy a tract called 4 Steps to Peace with God, but let me give them to you. Number 1, God loved you. Number 2, you've got a problem. It's called sin. The wages of sin are death. We have to be forgiven of our sins. Number 3, we have to personally receive Christ. For as many as received him, to them he gave power to become the sons of God, the children of God. You must personally. I can't do it for you, Joe. You have to do this. And here's the one. Number 4. Joe, why didn't you do it now? See, I wouldn't say to him, would you like to do it now? No, I'm freaking out. You ask the kind of question that he has to think. Why don't you ask Christ into your life now? Here's the opportunity. And you're ready to go. Learn how to present the gospel. God loved you. We all need to be forgiven of our sins. Christ provided that on the cross. We must personally accept Christ and receive him. And number 4, we invite them to do so. Does that help you today? And my last principle, smile. Don't look like you were baptized in lemon juice. And don't talk Christianese. Talk in a way that people are going to understand. Just ask the question. Remember, you're the light. But if we just prepared and let the light shine, going to make a difference in our world. Amen. Why don't you bow your heads in the presence of God? We're going to close the meeting, hand back to Pastor. Father, thank you for this time together today. Thank you, Lord, that you've called us to be the light of the world. Help us to shine in our lives, in our families, where we work, everywhere. We will shine for you. And when the opportunity comes, may we be prepared, ready to give an answer to the questions. Help us, give us confidence and strength in Jesus.